Now that you've warped your loom, it's time to weave. As a reminder, this is our loom frame. These are the warp pegs with the slots. This is our heddle, which moves the strings, the warp strings, up and down. This is our shuttle. This is what we've got our yarn for our weft to go through. The weft are the strings, are the yarn going across. The warp are the strings that go up and down. And we need our comb. If you don't have a comb, you can use a fork. With our heddle, you turn it one way and then the other, and it lifts and lowers the various strings. You need to be careful because if you're not, it can slip one way or the other and it could fall, and then your warp strings would all be out of place. First thing that we'll do is we'll tilt it back. We'll tilt it back. We'll take our shuttle, give a little bit of lead string yarn, and then carefully we will gently push our shuttle through our warp. And we'll gently pull it through. All of these motions should be careful. There's no need to rush through them, and if you do rush through them, it's more likely that you'll make a mistake. So stay calm and focused. Now, you'll pull your first one down into a sort of half circle shape. Then, let's get a little bit more lead yarn, and I'm going to turn my heddle in the other direction, and this lifts the other warp strings, and I'm going to gently slide my shuttle through the warp under the newly raised warp strings. Especially at first, you need to take your time on this. I'm gently pulling my weft yarn through, and I'm going to pull it down into sort of a half circle shape. Then I'll take my comb and gently, carefully, push them down together. Until I'm right here at this bar. There are my first two weft rows. Now I'll turn my heddle again to raise the other warp strings, and gently, carefully, I will put my shuttle through my warp and pull it through. And again, here at the beginning, I'm making a little dome shape. What you don't want is to have uneven tension. That means when some of the threads, the warp threads, are pulled closer together than others, you want an even tension through the entire weaving. All right, next step, I'm turning my heddle again to raise the warp strings. You can pull the comb through after every row that you put the weft across, or every couple of rows. And just like when you're pulling the weft strings, the comb, you're going to want to use an even pressure when you pull it down. If you use more pressure on one part than another, it's not going to be an even weave. And you want it to be the same tension all the way across. Right? Turning my heddle again. And if you ever walk away or get confused, just go back and look at your last thread of your weft and see if it's above or below your last warp yarn. And so whenever you go to put it through, this first one, I would put it through and it would be the same way under this first warp thread, which means I need to turn my heddle back because I walked away for a minute and I forgot whether I had turned it the way that I needed or not. So now I've turned it and I know that this thread will be going over this last warp. It's easiest to put the shuttle through close to the heddle. That's where the warp threads are the highest. That's where the heddle raises them the highest. Pull it gently through. You always want to have some lead yarn on one side or the other. You don't want to be in the middle of pulling it through and suddenly discover, uh-oh, I've run out of weft. Again, I'm pulling that down and I'm trying to be sure that I've got the even tension all the way across. All right, I'm turning it in the other direction. Again, you don't want to try to do this quickly because it's very likely that the heddle will slip off one side or the other, and you don't want that. All right, and I'm taking it back through. You don't want to start rushing this, even when you get very confident with it and you know exactly how to do the weft across the warp. Remember, these are the warp strings, these are the weft. Gently pulling it, and I'll pull it down with my comb. Of course, if you want a tighter weave, you can pull it down more. You want to be careful down here at the bottom. You don't want this to go over this supporting bar. So pay attention to the bottom as well. All right, turning my heddle, giving myself some lead yarn, and putting my shuttle through my warp. So this is one of those things that is very simple to learn, but not necessarily easy to do. Once you get used to it, though, it will become more easy. It will come more easily to you. Be careful as you're combing down. If you push down too hard on your warp, they may come out of the heddle slots. If they do, just gently lift them back into the proper slot. And that's how you do it. That's how you begin weaving. All right, enjoy.